Hey, it's Michelle Brown. I want to thank you for joining me today. We're going to make this cute little hedgehog card. I love watercoloring. I've just found it and I can't get enough of it. So this is watercolored, and look at the little detail on those little hedgehogs. Well, I believe they're hedgehogs. They look pretty cute like hedgehogs. We've got some gold accents on there, and we're using 3 different colors. I started out stamping it, and I'm using a liquid frisket. I don't know if you've ever used it before. This one's called Incredible White Mask. Basically, you paint it on. It's a latex. You paint it on, and it keeps the paper basically watertight. It's pretty cool to use. Although this one, I'll show you later, it's made with ammonia and liquid latex. It has not a real good smell. And also, this is probably a little bit of a what not to do. I didn't read the directions on the back, and it said not to shake it. I shook the little can there, the little bottle there, and it's all bubbled up. You'll see it when I show you a little close-up. Well, actually, you can kind of see it right now. You can see the bubbles popping. It's not a good idea to do that because it could leak. You know, your watercolors could leak into it, which mine did a tiny, tiny bit. You can't really see it. It's such a faint pink that comes through a couple of those little dots that popped and basically made a little hole. See how it's all bubbled up? It's all shiny and it's white. You see there, you can see the holes. And it says right on there, do not shake. And it's made with latex and ammonia. Yeah, it's not a great smell stuff. Now here's what it looks like dry. I let it sit overnight because I've never used it before. And we've got some Stampin' Write markers. I'm using Pumpkin Pie, Real Red, and Melon Mambo. Very cute colors. You just color it on the watercolor paper. I stamped on the watercolor paper, of course, first. And now I'm just putting water, just plain old water on there, moving it around a little bit, and also trying to hold it down with my fingers because the paper is, wanting to curve up there. And here we go, trying to get this to stay on the paper now is almost a little hard to do. So people are calling that smushing. You put your ink on something that resists the ink, which my background, my board there does. So, and the big trick to this, which I didn't understand it before, is drying in between the colors, because if you keep adding color, it just makes a big old mess. And I made several and they just did not look very good. So I got on YouTube and watched some more and watched several different people making these cards, and it's the drying in between. I'm putting a little more orange, the pumpkin pie, on there because it was white all around that one little guy. And I'm trying to get it some more, and you'll see I'll just keep adding more color here and there, a little more water to move it around, and then I'll dry, and then I'll look, oh, there's some other spot that's white, and now I want white spots intentionally. So you add a little water, let it sit for a second or two, and use a clean paper towel just so you don't smear more color, and then you see you get white spots. Now I spray the back here, trying to get the paper to flatten out. Now here's that frisket, that masking. It comes off like rubber cement. All right, now we're going to color our little guys. And I've got crumb cake here. We'll start with crumb cake and color them all in with the crumb cake. And my paintbrush is getting all messed up here, so I switched to a different one. These are just detail paintbrushes. There's nothing special about them. Now see that, I'm assuming that one's a little girl because it's smaller. And I'm assuming the boy is handing the girl the flower. I could be wrong, but anyhow, the smaller of the two, I got the face a little too dark. I'll show you that in a little bit, how you can do almost the same thing as what I did with the droplets in the background. I'll paint up the other guy. Then I'm also going to go in with another color, a darker brown, and I'll put some detail in it. It adds a little dimension. And that one, okay, there it is there. It's a soft suede. And that one's just a slightly, just a tiny bit darker, but you can see it when you look at the close-up pictures at the beginning. You can see the little bits of it in there. I'm just kind of making little marks like the fur or whatever those are on quills. I don't know. Those are porcupines. I don't think so. I think they're hedgehogs. And now kind of trying to outline the face a little bit. And then I'm looking at that other face of the smaller one, and it's like, that's too dark. So I see I got a little water on the paintbrush, and I just, do you see how it lightened it right up? And then I just kind of carefully dab it off with the paper towel. You know, you just soak it up and it pulls the color right back off the paper. Not all of it, just some of it. But it's pretty forgiving in some instances if you're careful. And then, see, I didn't get color there. I put a little more. All right, we'll close those up. And now we're going to paint the little flower. And I've got Watermelon Wonder. I wanted a different color than the red in the background, you know, the real red in the Melon Mambo. So I used that one. And now I've got Old Olive. That's one of my favorite greens. Just the tiny little flower and the little leaf on there. I'll dry that. And dry a little more on the back. And now we're going to cut out our circle. And I'm using the stitch shape framelits. I'm using the 2 5/8 and the 2 3/8 to make a little frame. And now I want to cover it with gold embossing powder. So I'm going to attempt a couple of different things here to try to figure this out. I'm trying to get the Versamark on there without touching it. So I start out with my little pinchers there, and that doesn't quite get it, because now how do I get it in there? So I'm going to try a little post-it note there, and then put the powder on, and it holds for a while because I want to get it on the edges and everything. So I kind of load it up a little, and then I do the tapping, and I kind of tap it right. See, I tapped it right off the side. So I'm trying to get it back on there. It didn't work. Well, the spoon helped. I got it over there. That's the gold embossing powder on there. And now we're going to heat it up, and of course I'm going to hold it with my tweezers. And one of the best things about working with paper is I love embossing powder. I love watching it turn, especially these metallic colors. It's so beautiful. And now we're going to cut this. Well, no, I'm not cutting it. Sorry, I'm putting on the embossing powder on here. I want the word in gold. And I'm using the Versamark again. Use the embossing buddy to get everything out of the way so nothing sticks where I don't want it, especially since that was watercolored. And now we're going to put some more gold embossing powder on here. Let's get that on. And I took the sentiment. Well, I must have cut that part out. The sentiment came from another set. The little guys were from Love You Lots, that stamp set, and Sealed with Love is the stamp set that I used. Yeah, that's what that one was called, where the words came from. And I had a lot of trouble getting this to stay down because it's really thick paper and it's pretty bumpy. But I ended up cutting that down to 3 3/4 by 5. And then the paper pumpkin for the other layer is 4 1/4 by 5 1/4. And of course the card is an A2 and it's scored at 5 1/2. It's, I did the top folding. So it's 11 inches by 4 1/4 and scored at 5 1/2. And I'm still trying to position that. Yeah, and it's still too long. But like I said, I ended up cutting it down to 3 3/4 by 5. Okay, now I'm going to put some foam backing, behind it, the fun foam. I have a lot of trouble getting my tape runner to stick to the back of it. So stick those two pieces together, and I get it a little crooked. So now I got to cut the edges. You just real carefully go on an angle and cut it underneath the watercolor paper there. Now I'm going to stick that onto the pumpkin pie, which is the same as the ink color. And then the pumpkin pie we're going to stick onto our top folding A2 size card. And that is the 110 pound, the thick Whisper White paper that I used to make the card base out of. And now I've got my fine tip glue pen, and I'm going to use the silicone mat to do that. That really helps to keep the glue off of everything else. And I find it oozes out a lot, so I use a paper towel and wipe off a little of the excess. Now we'll set something on top of that to get it, try to get it flattened out. And then I use these little tiny hearts that came from cutting my paper with the confetti heart border punch. I've got the gold glimmer paper and a little bit of the basic black that I cut. See the black hearts? To try to pull some black into it, like the, from the outlines of the little animals. And then I've got one gold one. And now I'm going to use some multi-matte medium to get that on there, because I have a lot of trouble oozing glue, and this stuff dries matte and you can't really see it. The other stuff dries shiny and it just looks like a big mess. So I like to use the multi-medium matte. And that quick stick is great too. Comes in, 2 pieces that come, the little stick comes out of the inside. And there's that stamp set that I didn't show you earlier. Sealed with Love is what it's called. And I'm going to take Happy Valentine's Day. I'm going to stamp it inside of the card with the VersaFine black ink. And we'll stamp it on a sheet first. And I've got this Stamp and Pierce mat there because these are photopolymers, which you need a little bit of give. And I'm stamping that on some Whisper White, just the regular Whisper White, not the heavy stuff. And then I'm going to tear it to try to make it look a little different. And I want to sponge the edges, so I'm getting out my sponge daubers. I put them in a case, and I just took some masking tape and I wrote, the names or part of the name of the color on each one. And I keep them in, color families, the reds all together. And now look, I smeared it. Didn't think about that VersaFine had to dry. So I'll flip it over. That's the good thing about paper. There's always another side. And close it and get it out of the way before I get it on something else. And now I'm drying it this time so I don't smear it. I'll check to make sure first. And now I'm going to just double check. Now I'm going to tear it again so it's teared facing me. Now I'm using the same pink that I used on the front, the background watercoloring, the Melon Mambo. I'm just sponging that around the sides. And this is great when it's sped up 4 times. I'm pretty quick at this. Normally I'm not, but it looks like I am. Get that all sponged around the edge. I'm just trying to make it look a little different. And I had to wipe something off that the little dauber got on there. And get everything out of the way. And now we'll adhere this to the inside, and there's our mistake side. Get that on there with the tape runner. Try to center it on the inside of the card. And there you have it, all done. Cutest little hedgehogs. Well, happy Valentine's Day. Bye-bye.